My name is Claire, and the night my mother came into my operating room bleeding and terrified, she grabbed my wrist and said the exact same words she'd used on me at 17. You owe me. Back then, she said it when she was packing up my little sister's college trunk with money that was supposed to be mine. This time, she said it with a breathing tube half-taped to her face, eyes wide, heart monitor screaming. The difference was, now I was the one in scrubs, standing over her with a scalpel. I was the only trauma surgeon in the building. The only person in that moment who could keep her alive. You don't owe me anything, I said quietly. I took care of that a long time ago. Then I looked at the anesthesiologist, nodded once, and we rolled her into the OR. This is the story of how my mom gave my college fund to my sister, and how, years later, I became the surgeon holding her life in my hands. I grew up in a small Midwestern town where football games and church potlucks were the highlight of the social calendar. My parents bought a modest 3-bedroom ranch when they were in their 20s. My dad worked for the city in public works. My mom was a nurse at the local hospital until my little sister was born. After that, she dropped to part-time, then eventually took a break that turned into permanent retirement. My sister, Lily, is 3 years younger than me. From the moment she arrived, the universe in our house tilted. I wasn't jealous at first. I loved her. I fetched diapers, rocked her, read her picture books. But as we grew, it became obvious we were living in 2 different families. There was Lily's family, where everything revolved around her needs, her feelings, her dreams. And then there was the family I was in. The one where you did your homework, watched your sister, and didn't make a fuss. When I got a 98 on a test, my mom glanced at the paper, said nice, and stuck it on the fridge in the corner. When Lily remembered all her lines in the 3rd grade play, my mom cried and bought cupcakes for her class. Lily's our little star, she'd say. She meant it. I, apparently, was the backstage crew. The one thing that was supposed to be mine was my college fund. Mom started talking about it when I was around 11. If you keep those grades up, kiddo, you'll be in good shape, she'd say. We started a fund when you were born. Grandma and Grandpa helped. You just focus on school and being a good girl. The money will be there. She said it in front of other people too. At Thanksgiving, when my aunt asked if they'd be able to afford college, Mom said, "We've been saving for Claire since she was a baby. We're not making the mistakes our parents made." At church youth group, when I mentioned wanting to be a doctor, Mom chimed in, and she will be. We've got a little nest egg set aside for her. The nest egg became this invisible but solid thing in my mind. I knew it wasn't going to pay for everything. We weren't rich, but it was security. Proof that my hard work counted for something. I didn't know that, somewhere along the way, that security had quietly been redirected. I was a straight-A student. Not because school came effortlessly, but because I worked my butt off. Flashcards, late nights, extra credit, lab clubs. Science fascinated me. I volunteered at the hospital, transporting patients and fetching warm blankets. I loved the smell of antiseptic, the hum of machines, the purpose. The first time I watched a trauma team rush a patient down the hall, I felt something lock into place. I wanted to do this. I didn't know what kind of doctor yet. I just knew I wanted to be in that world. Mom seemed proud. Follow in my footsteps, she'd say, even though I wanted to go way beyond bedside nursing. She introduced me to her old coworkers, bragged about my grades, asked a surgeon friend if I could shadow a day in the OR. That day changed everything. Standing at the back of the operating room in 2 big scrubs, eyes wide above a paper mask, I watched a surgeon repair a ruptured spleen. The control, the calm, the choreography. I went home that night and announced, "I want to be a surgeon." My dad whistled softly. "That's a long road, kiddo," he said. "College, med school, residency. Years and years." "I know," I said. "But I can do it." Mom hugged me. "And we'll be right there behind you," she said. "That fund is for exactly this." Lily, eavesdropping from the hallway, rolled her eyes. "Gross," she said. "I could never work with blood." She didn't have to. Her road would be different. Lily was always sensitive. That's what my mom called it. She cried easily. She got overwhelmed by homework. She hated being alone. When she was in middle school and I was already in high school, Mom started using me as Lily's buffer. "Can you help her with her math?" she'd ask, even when I had my own tests to study for. Can you drive her to practice? Even if it meant leaving my shift early. If you could just keep an eye on her tonight, she'd say. She had a hard day at school. Everything was always a hard day for Lily. If I said no, Mom would purse her lips. You know she's not as strong as you, she'd say. You can handle more. It was meant as a compliment. It felt like a sentence. By the time I was a junior, I had a detailed plan taped above my desk. Application deadlines, scholarship lists, prerequisite classes for pre-med. I wanted to go to a state university 2 hours away that had a strong science program and a good track record of getting students into med school. We visited campus once. I fell in love with it. The labs, the lecture halls, the smell of coffee and worn textbooks. Mom admired the campus but kept saying, "It's expensive." Dad ran numbers on his calculator, frowning. "Between your scholarship potential, federal aid, and the fund, it's not impossible," he said. "But it'll be tight." I said I'd work during school, take on loans, do whatever it took. They said they were proud. They said we'd make it work. I believed them. The year between my junior and senior year, Lily hit her own crossroads. She decided she wanted to go to a tiny private liberal arts college on the coast, 10 hours away, because she liked their student-made art on Instagram, and they felt like a family. The tuition made my eyes water. Out of state? I said, looking at the brochure. "Mom, it's her dream, Claire," Mom said. "Not everyone is built for big state schools. She needs small classes. She needs support." "What about the cost?" I asked. "My school is expensive too, but at least it's in state." "We'll figure it out," she said. "Don't worry about it." That phrase, "don't worry about it," started to give me hives. Because every time my mom said it, it meant she was about to do something she didn't want me questioning. Senior year of high school should have been exciting. Instead, it felt like walking toward a cliff blindfolded. I studied for the SATs. I applied to schools. I filled out the FAFSA. My acceptance letter from my top choice came in January. I got a merit scholarship, good but not a full ride. We celebrated with pizza. Mom took a picture of me holding the letter and posted it with the caption, "So proud of our future doctor." Underneath, people commented things like, "Good thing you started that college fund early, huh? You guys are such good planners. Can't wait to see Dr. Claire in a white coat." Each like felt like a little lie. Because that fund? It didn't exist like they thought it did. I found out in the most anticlimactic way possible. It was early March. Financial aid packages had come in. My top school laid it out clearly. Tuition and fees, room and board, scholarships, grants, suggested loans, and family contribution. That last number assumed my parents would kick in a certain amount each year, based on our income. That's where the fund was supposed to come in. I printed everything out and sat down at the kitchen table with a calculator. "Okay," I said. "If the fund covers this much the first year, plus the Pell Grant and scholarship, and I take these loans, it still leaves a gap of about $5,000. I can cover some of that with work study. The rest I can try to make up with outside scholarships." Dad nodded, following along. "That's not as bad as I thought," he said. "We can swing some of it." I turned to Mom. "How much is actually in the 529 now?" I asked. "We need a real number. I have to let them know by May." She stared at the papers. Then she stared at her coffee. Dad shifted in his chair. "What?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. Mom sighed. "Claire," she said, "the fund isn't what it used to be." My throat tightened. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means there isn't much left," she said. "How much is not much?" I pressed. 10,000? 5? 1? I need an actual number. She swallowed. "It's 0, she said finally. "There's nothing left." My brain fuzzed out. 0, I repeated. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "We thought we'd be able to rebuild it. But between the roof repair, your dad's surgery, and Lily's tuition deposit, it's gone." "Lily's tuition deposit?" I said. "From my fund?" She winced. "We put some of it toward her first semester," she said. "And the study abroad program. She needed it, Claire. That school doesn't have the same aid options yours did." I stared at her. "You used my college money for her college," I said. "The fund you told me my whole life was for me." "Don't say it like that," she snapped. It wasn't just your money. Your father and I earned it. Grandma helped. We used it for our children's education. Plural. But only one of those children is getting the benefit of it, I said. And it's not the one who did everything you asked. You'll be fine, she said, slipping into that maddeningly calm tone. You have scholarships. You can take loans. You're strong. You can handle it. Lily isn't. She would drown at a big school without support. This was her chance. What about my chance? I asked. Med school is expensive. Every dollar matters. You can always go later, she said. Plenty of people take a few years off. Work, save, then go back. Like who? I asked. Name one person you know who actually did that. She couldn't. Dad finally spoke up. I should have told you sooner, he said quietly. We kept thinking we'd catch up. That may be the cafe. He cut himself off, glanced at Mom. The what? I asked. Mom shot him a warning look. Nothing, she said. The point is, we're tapped out right now. We can't give you what you want. What I want, I said, voice shaking, is what you promised me, honesty. A fund with my name on it that you wouldn't raid without telling me. You could have talked to me a year ago. We could have adjusted my applications. I could have chosen differently. You didn't give me that chance. You're being dramatic, she said. We're doing our best. Every parent has to make hard choices. One day, when you have kids, you'll understand. Maybe I would. But in that moment, all I understood was that my future had been emptied out like a piggy bank to fund my sister's dreams. I didn't go to my dream university. I couldn't justify taking on the mountain of debt it would require without that fund. Instead, I enrolled in community college nearby. 2 years of cheap credits, then a transfer to the state school in town. No dorm, no campus life, no easy separation from a home that suddenly felt like enemy territory. I packed my schedule with classes and work. I got a job as a receptionist at an urgent care clinic, then as a medical assistant. Anything that got me experience and a paycheck. Lily, meanwhile, posted sun-drenched Instagram photos from her coastal campus. Cafes, beach trips, art projects. She called home in tears when finals were hard or a roommate was annoying. Mom and Dad sent care packages and money. It's not her fault your fund is gone, Mom said once when I bristled. She didn't take it out of the account. No, I said. You did. Our relationship never quite recovered. We slipped into a brittle politeness. Holidays were tense. Any mention of money turned the air to glass. I tried not to think about the what-ifs. What if I'd gotten to leave? What if I'd started med school sooner? What if I hadn't learned, so young, that promises about my future could be revoked without warning? The thing about resentment is that it can eat you alive or it can fuel you. I chose fuel. If I couldn't go the easy route, I'd go the hard one. I aced my community college classes. Transferred to the state university with junior standing. Graduated in 3 years total. Took the MCAT with a study guide so worn it looked like it had been through a war. Got into a decent mid-tier medical school in another state. How are you going to afford that? Mom asked skeptically when I showed her the acceptance. The same way I've afforded everything else, I said. Grants, loans, work, hustle. You're going to drown in debt, she warned. I'm already underwater, I said. Might as well swim toward something that matters. Med school was brutal. There's no other word for it. Endless lectures. Anatomy lab. Clinical rotations that started before dawn. Call nights that didn't end. I lived in tiny apartments with roommates. I ate hospital cafeteria leftovers. I took out loans I tried not to think about. But I loved it. The human body, the puzzles, the privilege of being there at people's worst moments. In 3rd year, I did my surgery rotation. Everyone had told me I'd hate it. The hours, the personalities, the pressure. They were half right. I hated the hours. I loved everything else. The RA felt like home. By the end of the rotation, I was the one leaning over the drapes, asking attendings if I could place one more stitch, tie one more knot. You know this is a hard life, Hayes, one surgeon told me. You're signing up for years of being exhausted and yelled at. I shrugged. I've been exhausted and yelled at my whole life, I said. Might as well get good at something while it happens. He laughed. You'll do fine, he said. I matched into a general surgery residency at a busy trauma center in a large city. 7 years of training. 7 years of blood, sweat, and exactly zero time for family drama. My parents and I stayed in contact, but the calls were superficial. How's work? Busy. Died. How's Lily? Great. She's getting her master's. She and Ben bought a condo. She and Ben. The fiancé who could afford a ring because he didn't have a mountain of medical debt. Good for her, I told myself. I clenched my jaw and went back to rounds. By the time I finished residency and a trauma surgery fellowship, I was 33. I took an attending job at a regional trauma center in the state next to the one I'd grown up in. Close enough to drive back in a few hours if I wanted to. Far enough to breathe. I rented a small, clean apartment within walking distance of the hospital. Bought myself a decent used car that didn't smell like fast food grease. Hung my diploma on the wall. Dr. Claire Hayes, MD. I ran my fingers over the frame and thought, I did this. Not because of them. In spite of them. I saw less of my family than ever. I worked insane hours. Nights. Weekends. Trauma doesn't care about holidays. On Christmas Eve, I'd be clamping bleeding vessels while somewhere, Lily posted pictures of matching pajamas with our parents. On Thanksgiving, I'd be suturing up drunk drivers. My mom complained about it sometimes. You never visit, she'd say on the phone. Mom, I've had 3 days off this month, I'd reply. And I spent them sleeping. You work too much, she'd sigh. I'm a surgeon, I'd say. That's the job. She'd change the subject to Lily's world. Her advanced degree. Her baby. Her house. Once, when she'd been talking for 10 minutes straight about Lily's daughter's preschool interview, I said, You know, I do interesting things too. Of course you do, she said quickly. But I don't understand all that medical stuff. I could explain it, I said. She didn't take me up on it. We'd made our choices, I thought. They chose the daughter they could fuss over. I chose the work that didn't need them. The night everything came full circle started like any other shift. I was on overnight call. It was a Friday in late fall, the kind of cold, rainy night that turns highways into accident factories. We were already busy. A motorcycle versus SUV. A fall from a ladder. A teenager with a stab wound. By 10 p.m., I was 3 coffees deep and halfway through dictating a note when the pager on my hip shrieked. Level 1 trauma. MVC. ETA 8 minutes. MVC. Motor vehicle collision. I grabbed the trauma phone. Claire here, I said. What have we got? The ED attending's voice crackled through. Female, mid-50s, rollover on the interstate, he said. They had to cut her out. Hypotensive in the field, pelvic instability, probable intra-abdominal bleed, intubated. EM says she lost pulses once and got them back. Pelvic instability. Abdominal bleed. This was bad. I'll meet you in the bay, I said. I hung up, stripped off my fleece, and headed for the trauma room, running through the checklist in my head. Massive transfusion protocol. Imaging if she was stable. Straight to the OR if she wasn't. The doors burst open. EMS rolled in a backboarded figure, straps tight, blankets soaked with blood. 56-year-old female, the medic recited. T-boned by a speeding truck, vehicle rolled 3 times. GCS 8 in the field, intubated for airway protection. Systolics in the 70s despite fluids. Bellies distended, pelvis like a bag of rocks. As they transferred her to the trauma bed, I stepped closer to examine. Gray hair matted with blood. Bruises blooming across her abdomen. Neck in a collar. I leaned over to check her pupils. And froze. Even under swelling and blood and an oxygen mask, I recognized her. The lines at the corners of her mouth. The little scar near her left eye from when she fell off her bike at 8. Claire, she rasped around the tube as consciousness flickered. Oh my God. For a second the room shrank down to just us. My mother. On my table. Bleeding out. Mom? I said automatically, then caught myself. Mrs. Hayes, I'm Dr. Hayes. I'm the trauma surgeon on call. Her eyes rolled, came back to me. You, she whispered. Of course it's you. Her blood pressure plummeted on the monitor. The room snapped back into focus. Hang 2 more units of O negative, I told the nurse. Get a pelvic binder on. Fast exam now. We moved in practice choreography. Ultrasound probe on the abdomen. Black pools where there should have been gray. Too much blood. Positive fast, the ED doc said. She needs the RA. I nodded. There's no time for CT, I said. We're going to the OR now. Call anesthesia. Let them know she's hemodynamically unstable. Prep for XLAP and pelvic packing. As we started to wheel her out, her hand shot out, grabbing my sleeve with surprising strength. "Don't let me die," she gasped. For a split second, images flashed through my mind. 17-year-old me at that kitchen table. The Zero Doubt Fund. Her saying, "You're strong. You'll figure it out. Lily needs this more than you." The temptation to say something sharp, to make some cruel comment about debts and interest, flickered and died. I was angry. I would always be angry, on some level. But I was also a surgeon. I had taken an oath, and whatever she had done to my future back then, this was my present now. "I'm going to do everything I can," I said softly. To the nurse I added, "Let's move." In the operating room, everything was familiar and surreal at the same time. Same bright lights. Same stainless steel instruments. Same beeping monitors. Except the body on the table belonged to the woman who had once held my entire future in a folder and decided it was better spent on someone else. We worked fast. Anesthesia pushed drugs. Nurses prepped her abdomen with antiseptic. I scrubbed, pulling on gown and gloves, hands moving on autopilot. The scrub tech passed me the scalpel. Time of incision, 10:47 p.m. Someone called. I made the first cut. Midline, from just below the sternum to the pubic bone. No hesitation. Flesh parted. Blood welled. We packed lap pads, suctioned, worked in the red tunnel. Her spleen was shattered. Her liver, lacerated. Her pelvis, a jigsaw puzzle of bone, fragments grinding. We clamped, tied, stapled, packed. I focused on anatomy, not identity. On vessels and organs, not old arguments. "Clamp," I said. "Suture." More suction. An hour in, her blood pressure stabilized. The monitors calmed. We left her abdomen temporarily closed with a vacuum dressing. Her pelvis was stabilized with an external fixator. We transferred her, still intubated, to the ICU. Exhausted, I peeled off my gloves and gown and leaned against the OR wall for a moment, scrub shirt damp with sweat. The anesthesiologist, Dr. Patel, clapped my shoulder. "Nice work," he said. "She was a mess." "She had a good team," I said. He gave me a curious look. "She said your name," he said. Before we sedated her properly. Kept saying my daughter. I swallowed. "She's my mother," I said. "But once she's in here, she's just a patient." He nodded slowly. "That's got to be complicated," he said. "You have no idea," I said. In the ICU, my mom looked smaller. Tubes. Lines. Machines breathing for her. Her blood pressure steady now. Her face pale, bruised. The night nurse ran through her vitals. "Family's in the waiting room," she said. "They've been asking for updates." Family. I'd been so focused on the surgery that I hadn't thought about who else might be here. Maybe even my grandmother. I took a deep breath. "I'll talk to them," I said. The ICU waiting room was a familiar kind of misery. Old magazines. Vending machines humming. A TV playing a muted cooking show. My dad sat hunched in a corner chair, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Lily paced near the window, phone in hand, mascara streaks down her cheeks. When they saw me, they both stood. "How is she?" Dad asked. "She's alive," I said. "We fixed what we could. She lost a lot of blood. Her spleen is gone. Her liver was injured, but we controlled the bleeding. Her pelvis is stabilized externally for now. The next 48 hours are critical." Lily sobbed. "Oh my God," she said. "Thank you. I didn't even know you worked here. When they said Dr. Hayes, I thought it might be you, but that seemed insane." "It's my hospital," I said. "This is my trauma center." Dad shook his head, like he still couldn't quite believe it. "My little girl, the surgeon," he said. "Never thought—" His voice cracked. I wasn't sure if he meant he was proud or still surprised I'd pulled it off. "Can we see her?" Lily asked. "Briefly," I said. "One at a time for now. She's intubated and sedated." As she moved toward the ICU doors, she paused. "Claire," she said, voice trembling, "you're not mad, are you?" "Mad." I almost laughed. "About what?" I asked. "That mom's in critical condition? That I had to crack open her abdomen? That her life depends on ventilators and vasopressors? That you had to operate," she said. "On her. After, everything. The fund. The lies. The years. I didn't have a choice, I said. I was the only trauma surgeon here who could do that operation in time. If I'd stepped aside, it would have cost her minutes she didn't have. I'm not going to let my personal history kill a patient, even this one. She nodded, tears fresh. You're a better person than I am, she said. I didn't feel like a good person. I felt tired. And angry. And weirdly, hollow. Go, I said gently. She'll want to know you're here. Mom was in the ICU for 10 days. The first 2 were touch and go. Her kidneys struggled. Her lungs filled with fluid. We took her back to the OR twice for washouts, cleaning out clots and checking for new bleeding. Each time, I evaluated whether I should be the one to operate. Each time, I was the only trauma surgeon available. Each time, I scrubbed in. Not because I wanted to. Because ethically, medically, there wasn't a better option. By day 4, she was more stable. By day 7, we started weaning sedation. On day 9, they pulled the breathing tube. Her voice was hoarse when she finally spoke. Water, she croaked. The nurse moistened her lips with a sponge. Her eyes drifted around the room, foggy. Then they landed on me. You, she whispered. I was standing at the foot of the bed, chart in hand. Me, I said. Doctor. Hayes, your surgeon. She let out a dry little laugh that turned into a cough. Always had to do everything yourself, she said. Didn't you? I didn't rise to the bait. How's your pain? I asked, stepping closer to check her incision. Like a truck ran me over, she muttered. What happened to me? You were in a car accident, I said. Your pelvis was shattered. You were bleeding internally. We operated. Several times. We, she echoed. You mean, you? Yes, I said. Me and my team. She looked down at the bandages on her abdomen, then back at me. So I'm not dying? She asked. Not today, I said. You have a long road ahead. More surgeries. Rehab. But you're past the worst of the immediate danger. Tears welled in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. I knew you'd save me. The words hit me wrong. Like she was congratulating herself for having raised a doctor. You didn't know that, I said quietly. You couldn't have. You didn't even remember I worked at this hospital until you saw my face in the trauma bay. She winced. Always have to argue, she muttered. No, I said. I don't. Not anymore. But we do need to talk. Not as doctor and patient, as mother and daughter. She sighed. Can we not do this while I'm full of holes? She asked. You almost died, I said. If not now, when? She closed her eyes, then opened them again, looking tired. Fine, she said. Say what you need to say. I glanced at the nurse, who understood and stepped back but stayed within earshot. Do you remember, I said, when I was 17 and asked you how much was in my college fund? She flinched. Of course you'd bring that up now, she said. You gave that money to Lily, I said. You lied about it for months. You made me feel crazy for asking questions. You told me I was strong and she wasn't, so I should just get over it. You told me one day I'd understand. I was trying to help her, she said. She needed that school. She would have fallen apart at some giant university. And I needed that start, I said. Med school is hard enough without starting behind. I did it anyway. But not because of you. Because of me. Because I refused to let your choice be the end of my story. She turned her face away. We didn't have unlimited money, Claire, she said. We had to make choices. You've always landed on your feet. Lily needed a safety net. And you assumed I could be the floor, I said. That I'd be fine no matter what you did. That you could pull support from under me and I'd just build my own. You weren't wrong. I did. But you never apologized. You never even acknowledged that you broke a promise. Silence. Monitors beeped. Somewhere in the hallway, a cart squeaked past. Finally, she spoke. We were wrong, she said quietly. About that. About a lot. I told myself you'd forgive me when you were older. When you understood how hard it is to be a parent. I didn't think about how it would feel from your side. I just didn't want to look at it. It wasn't a full, clean apology. There was still a lot of self-pity in it. But it was more than I'd ever gotten. I don't need you to grovel, I said. I just needed you to see that what you did hurt me. Deeply. That I didn't become a doctor because you set me up. I got here dragging the weight of that betrayal behind me. She looked at me with something like, you did it anyway, she said. Even without the fund? Yes, I said. I did. And you still saved me, she said. After all that. I saved a patient who needed emergency surgery, I said. Whether she was my mother or a stranger, my job was the same. Don't twist that into some story about how we're even now. Her eyes filled. What do you want from me? She asked. Forgiveness? I thought about it. I don't know if I can give you that, I said honestly. Not completely. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What I can do is set boundaries. She swallowed. Like what? She asked. Like this, I said. When you're my patient, I'm your doctor. I will treat you like I treat everyone else. No more. No less. When you leave this hospital, if you do, I'm not going to pretend the past didn't happen. I'm not coming home for every holiday, letting you gush about Lily while ignoring my life. I'm not your backup parent or your emergency fund. She closed her eyes. So you're cutting us off, she said. I'm redefining what we are, I said. I'm your daughter. I'm also a whole person outside of you. You don't get to trade my future away and then call in favors because we share DNA. Tonight, I saved your life because of who I am, not because of who you were to me. She was quiet for a long time. I'm glad you were there, she said finally. Even if you think I don't deserve it. I looked at the bandage on her abdomen, the bruises, the tubes. Everyone deserves competent medical care, I said. That's not about deserving. That's about humanity. What about being your mom? She asked softly. Do I still deserve that? I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know. Finally, I said, that's a longer conversation than we can have in the ICU. Focus on healing. We'll see what's left after that. She looked like she might cry again. Instead, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. I checked her drains, adjusted her pillow. Then I stepped out into the hallway, leaned my head against the cool wall, and exhaled. People always want to know the same thing when I tell this story, in more private, anonymized ways. Did it feel good? They ask. Was it satisfying, having her life in your hands after what she did? The honest answer? Not in the way they imagine. There was no moment where I thought, now you know how it feels. There was no triumphant swelling of music in my head as I made the first incision. Mostly it felt like work. Hard. Afterwards, in the quiet moments, there was a strange, bitter satisfaction in knowing that the doctor she'd dismissed as too busy to call home was the one who kept her heart beating. That the daughter whose dreams she'd written off as too expensive had met the cost anyway and then covered hers. But revenge, if you can even call it that, wasn't me letting her die. It was me living. Living in a way she never imagined for me. Living a life she didn't build, couldn't take credit for, and couldn't control. Saving her wasn't payback. It was proof. Proof that I had become exactly what I said I would. Funding my own education when she spent the original fund on someone else. Proof that I could carry the weight of my anger without letting it turn me into someone I didn't recognize. Would I have been within my rights to ask another surgeon to step in that night, citing a conflict? Probably. Would it have changed the outcome? Maybe. Maybe not. But I know this. If she had died on someone else's table while I hid in the call room nursing my grudge, I would have carried that too. Another weight. Another what if. Instead, I can look back and say, with clear eyes, I did my job. She survived the hospital. She went to rehab. She walks with a cane now. Calls a little more often, but with less entitlement. Sometimes we talk about her physical therapy. Sometimes about my cases, in sanitized, HIPAA-compliant ways. Sometimes about Lily's kids. We don't talk about the fund. We don't talk about the day in the OR. Maybe we will, someday. Maybe not. What I know is that the power dynamic between us changed that night. Not because she was helpless on a table, but because I finally understood something I wish I'd known at 17. She never held my future as tightly as she thought she did. She could mismanage money. She could break promises. She could redirect resources. But she couldn't decide who I became. That was mine. It still is. So yes, my mom gave my college fund to my sister. She chose her golden child and told me to figure it out. Years later, when fate and physics put her life in my hands, I did. I figured it out. I saved her. Not because I owed her. Because I owed myself the chance to be the kind of doctor I'd always wanted to be. The kind that does the right thing, even for people who haven't. Thank you for listening to my story.